Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in this 3-drop tubular peyote pattern, the Tres Amigos. We're going to be using 3 bright colors along with 3 crystals in groups of 3 to create this fun bangle pattern. It can also be used as a necklace as well for a station in the center, and you can create it longer and longer if you want to make an entire rope. As always, if you need any materials, go ahead and check out the links below to PotomacBeads.com to shop with us online and gather up your materials. Let's get everything out, cut some thread, and get ready to get started. For this project, we're going to be doing 3-drop tubular peyote, creating a pattern with some of our Duracoat Galvanized seed beads in the Miyuki brand. I have 3 colors along with my base, which is going to be my Duracoat Galvanized Silver. I'm using Duracoat Galvanized Purple Orchid, Duracoat Galvanized Dark Mint, and Duracoat Galvanized Poseidon. The crystals that I'm matching them up with are Capri Blue, Olivine, and Garnet. I'm going for a deep gem color. I have .006 wildfire beading thread on a size 10 English beading needle. You can do a 10 or a 12, and I'm going to take a stop bead and take it down to the base of my thread, not leaving too much at the end, just enough to sew back a little bit into your peyote stitch. I am making this a bangle, so it is going to meet at the ends to form a piece that's going to slide over my wrist. To begin, we are having 3 sets of 3 beads. We're going to have a total of 6 sets of 3 basically. And we're going to be using purple, and then I want to have, after my purple, I'm going to have my blue. See how that is there? My purple and then my blue. And then I'm going to do purple. So you can see I'm starting and ending each color with a silver. And I'm going to do another group of my blue. 1 more of my purple, again a silver before each, 1 more of my blue. So there I have 3 purples and 3 blues with silvers on each end. I'm going to let that drop back down next to my project, and I'm going to take my needle and thread back through my starter here till I'm coming out after my blue set. That being said, coming out after the blue set, I want to make sure to come out after the silver after the blue. I give a nice tight pull. My purple I'm going to be skipping, and I'm going to be adding 3 more of my groupings of blue to sit on top in the peyote stitch section. So coming out after that blue, I'm going to continue with my tubular peyote stitch. If you need to learn tubular peyote, I have some other videos on that as well. If you don't want to confuse yourself by starting out with a colored as well as extra beads in the project. This is 3-drop peyote because I'm adding 3 beads at a time. The only time where I'm not doing a group of 3 is when I go in and add my crystals. To begin, I have my 3 beads on. I'm going to skip over the next set of 3, which is silver, purple, silver, and I'm going to sew in to the silver, blue, silver. So I'm adding 3, sewing into 3, hence the Tres Amigos. Push that purple down and bring the blue on top. Again, silver, blue, silver, skipping over my purple, which includes the silvers on the side, so I'm skipping over 3 beads, and then I'm going to sew through the next 3 beads. Give a tight little pull. Just push that stop bead out of the way, and we're going to do this 1 more time. Each row of our peyote stitch is going to be 3 groups of 3. Skipping over the purple, which include the 2 silvers on the side, and going into those first beads that I was coming out of, the silver, blue, silver. When you first start out tubular peyote, it looks a little bit like a flower. See how it kind of doesn't want to sit nicely and it kind of overlaps itself? This becomes easier and easier as you progress. From here, after adding my 3 groups over top of that purple, I'm going to sew back through and progress through the first beads that I added in that 2nd row, which is actually the 3rd row. From here, I'm going to pull it nice and tight, and I'm going to continue with my blue. So I'm going silver, blue, silver, and if you need to, you can put these in groups. So there's my first group. Here's my second group, and here's my third group. That can help you if you're having trouble knowing when to do what we are going to call a step up. So here I'm going to do my first group. Sew over the next 3 beads and sew into that second set of blue that you just added. So we're coming out of the first in row number 3. We're going through the second group of 3 from row number 3. We're going to add our next group of 3 beads, and we're going to sew through the third set of 3 beads from the previous time around. Then we're going to add one more because we have one more laying out here. There goes my silver bead. One more laying out here, and I'm going to sew through that first set that my bead was coming out of, which is going to sit directly above the purple. That completes this fourth row of beads. From here, then I'm going to step up into the first 3 beads that I just added on that round of 3 groups of 3, so those 9 beads. Once again, silver, blue, silver. That's my first set of 3. That goes into the next group of peyote, which is the second set of 3 from the last row. Again, if this is getting you a little bit puzzled, it gets easier as you get further away from the start, and also easier if you already know a little bit what you're doing with peyote stitch. Again, skip over the next 3 grouping of beads, add 3, and sew through your third set. Add my third group of 3, and sew back into those original 3 beads that my thread was coming out of. That's going to be one of the 2 groups you can see that are set over top of one another. That adds my 5th row of beads. My first, second, third, fourth, 5th. To add the 6th row, I need to get up, so I'm coming out of the 5th row. So I'm going to sew up through the first 3 beads in row number 5 that my thread was coming out of. Once again now, I'm going to get ready to add my next grouping. My next grouping, instead of sewing through and using 3 groups of 3, I'm going to switch. And I'm just going to use my crystal. I'm going to add 1 crystal, sew through over to my next group of 3. That crystal is going to top right where there's 2 seed beads there, and my thread is going to go through where there's 3 groupings. You're going to add 3 crystals, and you can see I'm spinning around this tubular. I'm going to add my 3rd crystal in this peyote stitch, and this is where the lines really become defined, I think, and it's easier to watch and to look at. Give a nice tight pull, and then once again, we need to step up. This time we get to step up through the sparkly bead, the crystal. You're going to step up through the crystal and come on out. We're going to continue with our peyote stitch. Silver, blue, silver. That's our first group of 3 through the crystal. Once again, silver, blue, silver. That's our second group through the crystal. Third group, silver, blue, silver, through the crystal. Now, once again, we need to step up. When we step up, we're stepping up through the first group of 3 seed beads that we just added on that last trip around when we were adding 9 beads. From here now, we're going to continue. 3 more groups of 3. So there's 1. Skipping over the crystal, because that's our peyote stitch. We're skipping over 1, sewing through the next. Skipping over 1, which is our next crystal, sewing through the next group of seed beads. Again, final 1, my group of seed beads, sewing over top of the crystal into the 3 seed beads right after. Once again, we need to step up. To step up now, we're going through the 3 beads that sit above the crystal. We're going to continue this for another 3 rows as we go around and create our nice tubular shape. You can see how that's going. So you're just going to keep going around, stepping up, doing 3 more rows of peyote, going through now, adding your beads in between. And then I'm going to show you how we get ready and know to switch colors if you want to switch colors. You don't need to switch colors but I would recommend that you follow my lead on where to put the crystals. You can put them closer together, but I want you to be able to see where to put the crystals so that way you can see them at every turn of the bracelet, that they're not going to sit in the exact same row for the entire one. I just finished my next row, so I'm going to step up into those first 3 beads that I added in that row. Continue on again, 2 more rows here, and then we'll come back together and we'll get ready to switch to our green color. So now you can see that nice crystal encapsulated inside the center of those seed beads. And it's going to be basically 6 sides. You're going to see it on every other side. What we're going to do now is 1 more row of our blue. So we have 2 blues, then our crystal, then 2 blues. We're going to put a 3rd blue row on top here. And you're going to end up with 5 of your color that you're working with long beside the crystal. That's going to be how you know to switch. So I'm doing 3 more groupings of my blue here. And once I'm done that, I'm going to step up and then I'm going to switch to my dark mint color. So there, I finished my group of 3. I have 2 crystal, 3, and then I have 5 of the seed bead colors along the side. That's personally in my design where I'm going to step up and now switch colors. So I'm going in now and I'm going to switch to my green color. Going in and doing my green. And when you switch colors, it becomes really easy to figure out your switch in peyote and which ones you need to sew into. So right now, because of that color switch, that's why we use purple at the beginning, to just know and get that original count. So here I have my 3 colors going in, finishing up my 3rd set of 3 with the green, and now I know I had to get to the top of that green row that I just started. So I'm sewing up, and now I'm going to get ready to add 3 more groups of 3 with the green in the middle. I'm going to continue this until I look on the side here, so 2 more rows till I have 2 greens stacked up to get ready to add my crystal in the green color. Once you have 2 rows of your colors, so you had 4 rows of your green, 2 there, 2 on this side here, we're going to add our crystal in. So I've stepped up, coming out the 4th row of my green, and it's going to be again on the alternate side. So I have crystals on 3 sides here. I'm going to switch to the opposite 3 sides, or the other groupings of 3. So in my green, through my next peyote stitch, my green through my next 3 beads here, and then through my green and pick up the next 3 beads, silver, green, silver. Give a tight little grab, just making sure you don't have lots of extra thread showing, and sew through your crystal to step up. Now I'm going to continue just like I did here, adding in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more rows of the green, and then switch over to my purple color. So I'm going to do 6 more rows of my green, 3 sets of 3, and then we'll get ready to step up to our orchid color. So once again, it's now time to switch. I have 5 of my colors lined up, and I have 2 and then 3 of my seed beads on the side of my crystals. So now I'm ready to go in, switch over to my orchid color, and continue on as I did previously, adding 4 rows and then my crystals, and then 6 more rows before changing back to the blue color. So you're just going to go around and around and around repetitively over and over again. And I always get the questions, can I switch up for something else? So make sure that if you do switch up the project, go ahead and comment and give your feedback in the comments section to help out other people watching the video that may have some of the same questions. You can switch up for a 3mm, and it won't affect it too much. It'll just pull it in a little bit further. The reason 4mm was chosen is because 4mm bead is about the length of 3 11-0 seed beads. So you can see how quickly you can start to keep going. At some point, you will definitely need to add thread. You're going to end up most likely with about 14 to 20 feet. I'm going to say it, feet of thread, depending on the size of your bangle. And in order to add some thread, you are going to be able to sew into the peyote very easily, or because it is tubular, you can easily tie the thread ends together. You can tie the thread ends together and then start over with a new piece. So here in my example piece, as we're getting longer and longer, you can see that I tied the two thread ends together. I'll tuck one of the thread ends further back into some beads and then burn them down with a thread zap or a thread burner. The nice thing also with the peyote stitch, I have about a 6.5 inch piece here that I've started. I'm going to add these 2 more inches onto the piece pretty seamlessly because peyote is really easy to add. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to sew the 2 ends together in order to make our bangle. Once you're done achieving the length that you need, you're going to seam the 2 ends up together. Now you can see when it comes to the colors, I am missing my blue in between. Honestly, I could have gotten rid of one of my purples and my greens and just connected it and slid that on. But to make it more size appropriate and to give you an estimate of how big you need it to be, you can continue and do your blue here. It's going to get it a little bit big for my wrist wrap around, but you'll want to notice that obviously it's going to seem long. This is because it needs to fit over the widest part of your knuckles on your hand. So even though my purple and green go together instead of that blue in the middle, I'm going to seam them together here. What you're going to want to take note of is that your peyote stitch is going to match up perfectly. So my green here is going to sit inside of the purple. And if I do another one, my crystals are going to sit a little bit off. So you can go in at the very end and kind of alter the pattern if you need to a little bit, or just two next to one another. Nobody's ever going to notice. So I have those green lined up, making sure that my 2 green beads sit in between my last purple row. See how they line up perfectly there? And they sit off. You don't want them to sit so that you have 2 and then you have this big gap. You want to make sure that your beads go in that big gap. All right, so I'm coming out of my last row of my green and I'm going to step up. This is how you're going to seam this together. If you don't want to seam it together and you want to use a clasp, and when you're looking at measurement wise, mine here is about 9 inches just for my 7-inch bangle wrist. You can go in and you can decrease. So do a row of 2 seed beads instead of 3. Then do a row of 1 seed bead instead of 2. This is going to decrease it so you can get ready to add your clasp. To seam together, I'm going to line these up and I'm going to sew from one side to the other. So instead of adding right here a purple bead, I'm going to connect to the purple beads that sit on the starting side and sew in. Then turning it a little bit more, I'm going to sew back like a zipper into my green that are sitting up. So see how I sewed through those 2 greens with the purple in between? I'm going to pull my thread and that's going to sit right there pieced in. Flipping it over just so you can see, I'm going to go back to purple. Sew through the 3 purple here at the end. And I know it's a little bit tricky to see. It's easier to see when you're sewing a flat piece of peyote together. But those are going to line up right away. And once again, back to that set of green that are sitting up on my opposite side. So I'm just zigzagging. So see how that thread pulls in there really nicely? Then back to my purple. So I'm sewing through all 6 sets of seed bead, my 3 purple and my 3 green. And I'm not pulling tight right now. Normally I would, just so you can see this in action a little bit more. So see how the thread zigzags back and forth, going from the 3 green that are sitting up to the 3 purple, to the 3 green. Now what I'm going to do, look, is pull nice and tight and close up all those gaps. I'm going to take my thread and needle back through all of these one more time to connect this connection point, and then look, it seams it up perfectly. The bangle then is completed. I'm going to seam around this connection point one more time, making sure I'm catching both the left and the right side at each rotation and each turn. When you get to kind of the interior here, it will spin, but you can just turn it to the back a little bit, go in here. And if I know that I went green the other time, then I'll go back the purple and vice versa. I just sew right along that peyote line, go in 2 purple in a row, then I'll go through 2 green in a row, just to make that nice and tight. since your area of connection is going to be the one that's at the most risk to kind of come apart. Once I get those two thread ends together, I'm just going to tie my knot to finish up my fun Tres Amigos bangle. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching me create this Tres Amigos bracelet. You can see that the bangle is a little bit big for me, but it's a nice roll-on style, and you can roll on, roll off as you're connecting and creating it because of its nice peyote stitch. Again, you can do this as a necklace. It's fun in the comments if you want to say how many times you had to sew out your rows of peyote. I did purple, silver, purple a couple times, so I'm not going to lie. I probably had about 10 rows of peyote total that I had to sew out. You can comment below and let me know if you have the same thing. Get going, don't pay attention, and I'm like, ah, man, I got to sew back out. So if you do that, give me a little shout out at the bottom that that's a problem you have too sometimes. You can go ahead and purchase any materials if you need any by clicking on the links below the video in the description to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Remember also, if you haven't yet, click that little subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. As always, it's awesome if you join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making and post your pictures of your Tres Amigos bangle. It'd be great to see the different patterns, the color combinations, and the different colorways that everyone chooses. Thanks so much for watching. Happy beading and enjoy your Tres Amigos bangle.